Recent reports suggest that not only is Zach LaVine not going to the Los Angeles Lakers, but maybe he's staying put and not leaving the Chicago Bulls at all. I'm your host, Joey Mercer. This is another episode of Bulls Digest, and before we get into it there today, I just want to say that about 85% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so make sure if you aren't already subscribed to go down below, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and you'll be able to stay up to date with your Chicago Bulls. So without further ado, let's get into the topic at hand there today, because it's a different one than we've been covering as of late, and it is LaVine staying put. So, we've mentioned LaVine going to the Lakers, we've talked about different scenarios in the past, the Kings, the Sixers, and pretty much all teams that you can think of that would be trying to make that extra push and need that extra piece. And now there's reports coming out from Sports Illustrated saying that LaVine may not be going anywhere at all, and this may not be the Chicago Bulls' fault to begin with. The article starts out by saying the title of report states there's an increasing expectation that Zach LaVine will stay put at the trade deadline. The latest development could mean Zach LaVine is staying put at the trade deadline, and this is by Nick Ragu. We've covered lots of his articles here on the channel before off of Sports Illustrated, and this is another one that we're going to be going through and breaking down and giving my opinion on. Next thing it said was things are not looking good on the trade front for the Chicago Bulls and Zach LaVine, as a report from Matt Moore of Action Network indicates that there aren't many teams interested in acquiring the high-scoring but oft-injured wingman. This development might mean that the two-time All-Star could remain with the Bulls past the trade deadline on February 8th. And that's not something exactly that some Bulls fans, including myself, would like to hear. The team has done very well without LaVine in the lineup, and despite them coming back, the Suns being them, last night, we've been pretty good without him in the lineup, and that's 100% true. They also played pretty well since he came back from injury, but there are a few games I feel like could have been solved in regulation, went to overtime, or we could have had a higher lead than we would have with LaVine the game, as teams kind of closed the gap when it came down to the wire. The next thing that we saw in this was still no takers. Moore implied that the trade market for LaVine barely exists, even though he's averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists a game this season. However, the high-flying guard has played in only 25 games this season due to a foot injury that sidelined him in December, and recently a sprained ankle that would sideline him for anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks. Initially, when the injury happened, I thought that they were kind of milking it to try to find a Zach LaVine trade partner, but it seems as if it was just an injury that's kind of ailing him right now, and that's obviously not what another team wants to take on either. Not only has he only played 25 games this season, but he also has not been up to speed with things completely. At 20 points a game is still very good, but we're looking at a guy that was closer to 25 points per game, and you can see that he isn't fully healthy on the court, and this is with the Bulls, and teams are looking at, contending teams that is, with that extra piece that they need, are looking at a player that can come in and take a 5-point dip, maybe go down, and if he's going from 20 to 15 as opposed to 25 to 20, that might not be the guy they're looking for. When you look at his defense off the ball, is really not that good. Next thing we saw in this article was still no takers for Zach LaVine, and there's increasing expectation of him remaining in Chicago. Fair or not, LaVine is seen as a distressed asset on account of his play style, injury history, and most importantly, a contract that takes him through 2026, Moore wrote. And it's not just the fact that he's locked in until 2026, it's the money that's involved with that. You know, you're getting $40-50 million a year for Zach LaVine. That is a lot of money to pay for any player, definitely one that's been injured. I think the biggest thing is the injury. We've talked about the defense, and you can get by that if you're a team that really needs somebody in, is willing to pay that luxury. But if he's not going to play at all, then that's something that you don't want to take on, and that's the biggest worry with teams, where it looks like the Bulls would almost have to add assets for them to take away a former All-Star off their team, which is not exactly what you want to do. It's like biting a bullet there. It's not what a front office wants to do by any stretch of the imagination. The second part of a topic that we're going to talk about today is not on Zach LaVine, but on DeMar DeRozan. We've kind of brought up some scenarios of him being traded, but nothing seems too definite. But this is a article, or a quote, that kind of piqued my interest. This one is DeRozan on the move. So yeah, maybe DeRozan's the guy that's going to get moved. It's a little easier to move him. We lose him in the offseason if we don't get anything for him. And are we making that big push this season? I don't believe so. I believe we can sneak into a playoff spot maybe, but I don't really know if we're going to make much noise in the playoffs if we get there. And that's not exactly ideal. I understand it, but we're definitely not a team that's quite in that rebuild mode unless we were to make some serious moves right now. And what team is taking on the contract of LaVine? And then the team wants to kind of see how they play without LaVine, and it's been really up and down with what the team wants value-wise, what other teams seek the value as, and it's really been all over the place. It's really hard to follow, and that's why we try to keep you up to date every day. I know opinions have changed a lot here. My opinions have changed a lot. It's really because things change on a day-to-day basis. Articles are changing all the time on Zach LaVine. It goes from, you can take on the chance of small injury to he's injured a lot, to the contract's big, to maybe a team will use him because he's so good at scoring. And then you look at certain things dipping this season, and then it's a worry again. So that's why it's been kind of all over the place with that. So I do apologize for that it's kind of been everywhere. But once again, really hard to follow everything that's going on. And I'm just giving my take as it has changed a whole lot here at Bulls Digest. But as far as DeMar DeRozan, I thought that the team was going to keep him. I think they probably should trade him, because if you're not going to be on the same page, and it seems like the front office isn't with DeMar as terms of contract go, then why not get some assets for him right now instead of lose them in the offseason, which seems to be what they're going to do. But will another team take on that value, which is what the Bulls, I think, are looking at, which is why they think they might be able to keep DeRozan, or so I think. This one said, could teams call about DeMar? The Bulls may find some success trading veteran wingman DeMar DeRozan, who is playing in the final year of a 3-year pact he signed in 2021. Already 34 years old, DeRozan remains one of the NBA's most lethal scoring threats. He's averaging 22 points and 5 assists this season. So DeMar is much older than LaVine, but he's putting up a better season and has not been injured. Although he is, I think, 6 or 7 years older now than Zach LaVine, he still is a player in this league that puts up over 20 points a game and never gets injured. At 34 years old, you start to worry about guys like him. He's gone from playing shooting guard all the way up to power forward throughout his career, and has done a great job at all those positions, and I can definitely say that. I think his best stint has been here with Chicago, and his second best obviously with the Raptors, but that little stop with the Spurs really developed his game, and we got a complete player in DeMar DeRozan on the offensive end of things. Now with Chicago, he's had some of the best production playmaking-wise this season that I've seen out of him. His shot may have taken a little bit of a dip. Sometimes he misses some shots that he probably should pass out of, or whatever it may be, but DeRozan is still a very, very lethal scorer on the court, and I love having him on the Bulls, but we don't want to lose him for nothing at all. And the last thing we saw in this article was DeRozan's camp and the Bulls have been regarding a contract extension, leading more to write that NBA insiders wonder if DeRozan could be traded by the trade deadline. Some insiders do wonder if DeMar DeRozan on an expiring contract will have a new home by All-Star, Moore said. So that's the biggest thing, is the contract not coming to a negotiation there, really being on different sides. And if you can't come to a contractual agreement there between DeMar DeRozan and the front office, then it is time to move on from him. Do not take a chance and not know if he's going to sign. It might work out for you in the end, but it might really come to bite you, and that's not what you want. Try to get some value for him. They should try to shop him, kind of be on the same page with DeMar. And hopefully, if things do not happen at the trade deadline, we can sign him for a deal that everybody is happy with in the offseason. This has been your host, Joey Mercer. I hope you enjoyed the video there today. Make sure to go down below if you did, like and comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, and you will be notified every single time we upload as long as you hit that bell right next to subscribe. This has been your host, Joey Mercer, as always, signing off.